Hello my dear students, once again welcome to your online class. Today we'll be discussing about the atomic structure, the fourth chapter of your chemistry textbook. So in this chapter we'll consider the following things. So we'll consider the Dalton's atomic theory, and we'll also read the contradiction of Dalton's atomic theory with the modern atomic theory, and then we'll discuss about the three subatomic particles, and then we'll also discuss about the atomic number, the mass number, and finally the formation of ions. So to begin with the first topic, the Dalton's atomic theory, the Dalton in his theory, he wrote that all the matters, irrespective of its physical state, they are made out of a small particle known as atoms. The second point he mentioned was the atoms of the same elements, they are alike, but whereas the atoms of different elements, they are different. And in the fourth point, he mentioned that the atoms, it cannot be further broken down into the simpler particles. And then he also mentioned that the atoms of the same elements combines in the simple whole number to form the molecule. And finally, the last point he mentioned was the atoms, it cannot be created nor it can be destroyed. So now the contradiction between the Dalton's atomic theory and the modern atomic theory is, nowadays the modern atomic theory states that the atoms can further be divided into the three subatomic particles, namely the electron, protons and the neutrons. And the another contradiction is the atoms nowadays, it can be created and as well as it can be destroyed by the process of nuclear fusion and a nuclear fission reaction. Now coming to the next topic, the subatomic particles. So what are subatomic particles? The subatomic particles are the particles of which the atoms are made up of. So there are three subatomic particles, namely electron, protons and the neutrons. This proton and the neutron, they resides in the central part of the atom, which is known as a nucleus, and then the electron revolves around the nucleus in a fixed path known as cells or orbit. So basically the atom, it consists of two parts, the electron which revolves in the outer part of a nucleus, and the nucleus that contains the proton and the neutron. And this proton and the neutron, they can also be called as a nucleons. So there are two kinds of nucleons. The positive nucleons is known as a proton, and a negative nucleon, or neutral nucleons is known as a neutron. An electron is a negatively charged particle which revolves around the nucleus. So if you are to write the difference between the electron, proton and the neutron, you can easily differentiate it in terms of its charge. So the electron is a negatively charged particle, the proton is a positively charged particle, but whereas the neutron, it is a neutral particle. Coming to its position in an atom, the proton and the neutron, it resides in the center of the atom, which is known as nucleus, but whereas the electron, it revolves around the nucleus in a fixed path known as a cell. So that is what the three subatomic particles, the electron, proton and the neutrons are. So the next important topic to discuss about is the atomic number. So what is the atomic number? So the atomic number is simply, it is the number of protons present in a given atom. And the next is the atomic mass. Atomic mass is the sum of proton and the neutron present in the nucleus. For example, if an atom has a 5 proton, 5 neutron and 5 electron, then the atomic number of a given atom is simply 5, because there are 5 proton in a nucleus. And if asked about the atomic mass, since there are 5 proton and 5 neutron, so the sum makes up 10. So the mass number is 10. So thus we can say that the atomic number is the number of proton of an atom, but whereas the atomic mass or the mass number is simply the sum of proton and neutron inside a given nucleus. Now the next topic is about the ions. Generally the atom is neutral because the number of proton is always equal to the number of electrons. So the positive and the negative charges, they cancel each other and the overall charge of an atom is neutral. But if the number of electron exceeds the number of proton, then the electron overall, it becomes negatively charged. So then it forms a ion. So when an atom it gains an electron and form a negatively charged particle, it's known as anion. And when an atom loses an electron, that means the number of proton exceeds the number of electron, then it forms a positively charged ion, which is known as cations. So there are two kinds of ion, namely the cation and the anion. Cation is the positively charged ion and anion is the negatively charged ion. When are these ions formed? The ions are formed when an atom it gains the electron or loses an electron. So when it gains the electron, it becomes negatively charged and is known as an anion, and when it loses an electron, it becomes a positively charged and is known as a cations. Now the question comes, why does an atom loses or gains an electron? So to understand this, you must understand the electronic configuration, which you have already learned in your class 7 also. So the electronic configuration, it simply means the arrangement of the electron in the cells. So the atoms are stable only if it has 8 electrons in the outermost orbit, but most of the atoms apart from the noble gases, they do not have 8 electrons. So in order to attain the inert gas configuration, the atom it either loses or gains an electron to attain that stable state configuration. And this topic we'll be discussing about in the next class, where we learn about the chemical bonds. There are two types of chemical bond, electrovalent and covalent. So we'll be discussing this in our next class. Thank you.